Hey, what's up everybody? This is Arctic and you're watching part 2 of the VORAH for Mortal Kombat 11 for the series Modified Sprites. So, at this point, I'm almost done with it. I'm just doing some fine adjustments like changing the color of her eye and, you know, make sure that it's grayscale, as well as like redefining some attributes. So for example, I'm changing the hue -7 to make it more orangey, because she's more of like a orange yellow than like a green yellow. And then I'm kind of playing with um, the clothing, just making it look more tattered and ragged, um, adding more defining features, because to me they look like they're wrapped like bandages. So she just took like shreds of clothes and threw it on. Kind of reminds me of a Kanye West new fashion. Fucking bandages all over the place. But yeah, I really like this outfit they chose for her. It's extremely iconic. Like I've never seen anyone, like a insect humanoid wearing like a hoodie. It's like genius. Mortal Kombat always has pretty great designs when it comes to their characters. I mean, they've always just kind of been ahead with like high definition graphics and sprites, and I really enjoy editing the 2D era sprites into like 3D characters. So I will show some of my previous works in the next video, just so you guys can kind of get a feel of my progress so far. Oh, okay, so let me explain what I'm doing here. Uh, I'm trying to get the right amount of lines and at the right angles with the same amount of space in between, so it looks a little more uniform and symmetrical. But at the same time, I'm adjusting the angle so that way I could get the jacket to move. Oh, and I had 2 pixels of feather, which it adds like a blurry edge, like anti-alias around it. But at this point I moved it to 0 because I didn't need it. So I'm over here, I'm just with the opacity down, just so I can kind of see where her body begins and ends, so I could get the folds more realistic. Trying to create the illusion of depth, foreground and background. So of course, like the front of the flap is in front of it, so it's lighter, and then like the hoodie and the back pieces of it are a little darker, just so it makes it pop more. I'm also doing like a kind of curve right there where it's flared up towards the chest, but it goes down when it hits the leg. Yeah, I really love the dodge tool and the burn tool. It really helps get that shading realistic, and to me, I really enjoy it. It's like very satisfying to see those dimensions come out. And I'm just darkening the edges, defining those lines a little bit more. And at this point, I'm playing around with the levels just to kind of get a higher contrast, but not too much, because then it wouldn't be right. So at this point, I observed another detail in the texture of her outfit. So I went ahead and I added noise, and I just did the levels again. Okay, so at this point, I'm playing around with some patches of her skin, so I can desaturate them, because the VORAH has like gray freckles here and there. So it doesn't make that much of a difference, but to anyone who looks at it closely, they can see the amount of detail that I put into this. So once again, I'm using the levels on her shoulder, and in my opinion, it makes it a little more realistic when it has high contrast. I mean, it really just depends on what you're trying to depict or imitate. So at this point, I'm realizing that I'm missing the green lung or innards kind of detail on her body. So now I'm using a pencil tool at 50% opacity, and I'm starting to flesh out that detail. So it's kind of like in her throat, her chest area, like behind her exoskeletal plates. Now I'm adding some burn with the shadow range and brightening on the highlight range. And the difference between like shadows um, and highlights, and then there's normal. So like it messes with like certain shades. So for example, if you want like the light detail to remain, then you would choose shadows, so it'll only affect the shadows. But if you wanted to like give it like a more grayish glow, then you would go for shadows on the dodge tool. And then they both do different things. If you play around with this software, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It'll affect certain darks and lights, basically. So at this point, I'm pretty satisfied with the chest and neck area when it comes to adding this green innard detail. I'm gonna start adding it to the other parts of her body as well. Oh, I'm finally cleaning up the arms here. Because it's, after all, there will be two variations of this sprite, one with the clothing and one without. It's very interesting that NetherRealm or the MK team really decided on adding more races to Outworld. I really respect that though. Like they really went all out with the world building in this series, and I think that's why so many people revere it for its lore and just the storylines and the characters are so interesting. But it's essentially good versus evil, and sometimes people switch sides or they tip the balance a certain way even though they didn't mean to. I fucking love Mortal Kombat, honestly. Just the aesthetic, the way the gameplay mechanics are. I've been a huge fan since I was like a kid and playing it on my PC. Well, actually, it was my dad's PC, and he's the one who introduced me to it. So, if you're watching this, thanks, Pops. Yeah, here we go. Now I'm starting to redefine the torso a little more. Get those like ridges, those raises, and depressions, just the right levels and textures. And here I am, adding some more shade, adding bits of color and grays here and there, depending on the certain area I'm working with. I'm touching up the edges of the sweater one more time, darkening the shadows a little bit. Now I'm colorizing it just so it has like a slight blue tint to it, and then I'm reducing it, just kind of playing around with the brightness and darkness of it. And at this point, I'm pretty satisfied with how the clothing came out. Now I want to emphasize again the importance of naming these layers when you separate them. Oh, and I'm adding shadows here just so that way it looks more believable. But I also duplicated her body so I could show one without shadow and one with shadow, so that, you know, respectively, when she's wearing the hood, her face is covered, and that's where the darkness is coming from. Oh, this is what I did. So I basically ripped the OB separator, I forget what it's called, her spider legs. Yeah. And I'm just flattening them basically so that they're one uniform color, and so that they're as harsh and blocky as possible. You know, like a standard 8-bit drawing without the anti-alias, because the anti-alias is basically gives it a fuzzy edge, like a blurry edge, and I wanted it to look more two-dimensional, so I'm really minimizing that effect of the anti-alias. Here we go. Just copying the shapes with the magnetic lasso, cutting them out, pasting them, whitening them, and then filling them with a single color. And I really like this part of the video. I'm gonna do some additions, some subtraction, of course. Just renovate it until it looks perfect. So this bevel and emboss tool is in the effects tab next to that half circle. I picked screen and normal just so you could kind of get that shadow. And now I'm doing a stroke so I could get rid of that that blurry line. And then I added dissolve. Now I'm adding highlights to it as well. Notice that it's kind of like has some holes and some spots to fill. I'm just adding some shadows at the bent part of her spider arms or legs, whatever. You're gonna see me fill in those little notches. So I added a red background just so I can kind of see what I'm doing. Then I use the magic wand to select around her, and that's how I'm gonna fill in those holes quickly. So I made the stroke go inside just so that the spider arms are a little thinner. And in my opinion, it worked out really good. Feel free to leave a constructive criticism or, you know, your take on it. I would love to see how you guys got around certain challenges when it comes to like making these. So of course I'm adding more highlights just to kind of give it more color. I'm gonna review it all just so that nothing's missing. So there's version 1 with the hood, and then I take off the hood shadow body and hide the hood area, and that's pretty much the end result. So thank you very much for watching. I would appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and stay tuned for more modified sprites.